A Fox News alert, Senator Chuck Grassley says the Burisma executive who allegedly paid then Vice President Biden $5 million has audio recordings of their conversation and was keeping them as an insurance policy.
Brooke Singman joins us now with the latest. Hey, Brooke.
Hey, good morning, guys. Senator Grassley says the Burisma executive who allegedly paid President Biden $5 million has more than a dozen audio recordings of conversations he had with both Joe and Hunter Biden. Listen.
The foreign national who allegedly bribed Joe and Hunter Biden allegedly has audio recordings of his conversation with them. 17 such recordings. These recordings were allegedly kept as a sort of insurance policy for the foreign national in case that he got into a tight spot.
Grassley says that 2 of those recordings are with then Vice President Biden, while the other 15 are with his son, Hunter. Now, these stunning new revelations come as House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer subpoenas a key associate to the Biden family. Comer now wants Devin Archer to appear for a deposition on Friday, writing a letter that reads in part, quote, both information the committee has reviewed and public reporting indicates that Mr. Archer played a significant role in the Biden family's business deals abroad, including but not limited to China, Russia, and Ukraine. Mr. Archer's testimony is critical to the committee's investigation. Now, President Biden also under scrutiny from Congressman Andy Ogles, who introduced articles of impeachment against him and Vice President Kamala Harris just yesterday. Ogles telling Fox News Digital, quote, Joe Biden has repeatedly abused his position of power, both as vice president and president, to cover up his illicit family business dealings and exploitation of taxpayer resources. He's violated his sworn oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. The Republican from Tennessee described Harris as Biden's accomplice and said she's allowed an unchecked land invasion of migrants at our southern border.
10%. 10%, 10%, 10%, 10% for the big guy. I'm creepy and I'm sleepy. I swore that she was 18. Come on, Jack. Biden crime family. Neat. Creep. Thief.
Today is Tuesday, June 13th, 2023, and we have the tapes! We got the tapes! Ladies and gentlemen. Chuck Grassley says that foreign national at the center of Joe Biden's bribery allegation has recordings, 17 of them, of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden making the bribes, yo! It's spicy. Trump to be arrested in Miami today, and Mike Davis joins the show. The best guy you could possibly ask for, our in-house attorney. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. How do we stay on time? How do we stay on energy? How do we stay on level in this news cycle? There is a lot happening, and boy howdy, do I got a show for you today. We went into the archives. You're going to be amazed at what we found. The way I stay energized is blackout coffee. Your boy Benny's always drinking blackout coffee, although it's 100,000 million degrees in Tampa with humidity, so I have my iced coffee this morning. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Got my sweet American flag there, and I am ready to go. Blackout coffee keeps me caffeinated. It keeps me ready to go with my black iced coffee in my nice blackout coffee mug because it tastes great. A lot of this coffee is so bitter, like if you make iced coffee with it, it actually tastes terrible. Blackout coffee is incredible. It's incredible because it's infused with a very special ingredient called freedom and love of this country. It's made here in Florida, and it's made by patriots who are on your side. Do not give your money to woke coffee companies. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/Benny, blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Use the coupon code Benny for your 20% off your first order. And let's get going here, baby. Republican senator says foreign national at the center of Biden bribery allegations has 17 phone call recordings with Joe and Hunter that he kept as an insurance policy. My, oh my. Hot diggity damn. We got the tapes. It's turning into a Law and Order episode. It's turning into an episode of The Wire. The Wire was shot in a city called Baltimore. I don't know if you ever watch it. You ever watch The Wire? Shot in a city called Baltimore. Very, very dangerous, very scary place. In Baltimore, there's a big monument to a guy named Edgar Allan Poe. He was a poet there. Why am I telling you about this? Well, because Edgar Allan Poe has this famous poem about this murderer. It's The Raven is the name of the poem. It's the most famous poem maybe ever written. And it's about this murderer. And he can't stand the fact that he murdered someone and he kept them in the floorboards of their house. And every time he walks on those floorboards, they like scream out to him. He's haunted by his crimes. He's haunted by the reality of what he's done. This murderer. And Joe Biden, if you really take a step back and you watch his actions as they pertain to Burisma, as they pertain to being asked about Hunter and Burisma in Ukraine, you see the actions of a guilty man. You see the actions of a man who is haunted by the floorboards and the bloody bodies underneath them. Like the same thing happens when you ask Bill Clinton about Epstein, right? Or Bill Gates about Epstein. They're like, that's funny. Let's not talk about that. They don't behave like innocent men. They behave like guilty men. And these are things that are like bred into the bone, right? You can't beat it out of the flesh if it's bred into the bone. When you're guilty, you behave like this. Here's a clip from Joe Biden when he was running for president in 2020. Early on, asked by a very straight news, like a pretty straight news dude. His name's Mike Allen. He runs Axios. And Mike Allen's like, yo, you got a lot of problems with this Burisma thing, this like Ukraine energy stuff, and your son. See if you can't tell when Joe Biden realizes that this is going to be a really bad question for him. See if you can't tell where Joe Biden, in this interview, which is very rare for him to ever be asked about this kind of stuff on the record, like behaves like a deeply guilty man. Like as though Joe Biden knows somewhere in Ukraine there are these recordings. And maybe it's time to start a war in Ukraine so that all of it just gets blown to smithereens. That's a great way to get rid of evidence. Watch this telling interview. We went and dug in the archives for this sucker, and you can really see the hauntings of the Raven in Joe Biden.
Hunter Biden, your son, was getting paid a lot of money to serve on the board of a Ukrainian energy company facing serious corruption charges. You were the vice president running point on Ukraine. The average Joe hears that and says, that sounds fishy. What's your understanding of what your son was doing for an extraordinary amount of money?
I don't know what he was doing. I know he was on the board. I found out he was on the board after he was on the board, and that was it. And there's nobody.
Well, you've had a lot of time. Isn't this something you want to get to the bottom of?
No, because I trust my son.
But that doesn't pass the smell test. Like when you're vice president, isn't there a higher standard? Don't you need to know what's happening with your family? Don't you need to put down some guardrails?
Unless there was something that was, there was something on its face that was wrong. There's nothing on its face that was wrong. So look, if you want to talk about problems, you know, let's talk about Trump's family. I mean, come on. This is, these guys are amazing.
So you think that everything that happened was kosher?
You know there's not one single bit of evidence, not one little tiny bit, to suggest anything done was wrong.
Oh, really? Really, Joe? There's not one little tiny bit. Nothing. And do you see the bitterness there? Hey, like, maybe go look at the orange Cheeto man. He got the bobbity boop. He's a pippity poop. He's a poopy man in the White House. He's orange. Come on, man. He's a corn pop came and braided my hair. He gave me a pack of Newports. Thought it was nice. Who cares we did the Ukraine do? No. This doesn't really stand up to the smell test, as Mike Allen said. And more importantly, there's more than a little tiny bit of evidence. Man, the hubris on these people. And also, by the way, correction, ALX has told me it's the Telltale Heart. The murder story with Edgar Allan Poe, not the Raven. I got them mixed up. My apologies. If you're melting down in the comment section, I have been corrected. Correction on the record. The Telltale Heart is the story, the poem of the murderer in Baltimore who buried the body in the floorboards. A man with no heart, Joe Biden, who's actually used this exact same line before. You can tell he was coached on this. He was coached on this because he knew that he had the federal law enforcement on his side, and that the evidence that they had, which was voluminous of Biden's crimes, would never be released. And now they're having to pry it out of the cold dead hands of federal law enforcement, and we now know that there are recordings of Biden's crimes. Joe Biden, whilst running for president, everyone thanking ALX for correcting me on my Edgar Allan Poe. I love you. I love y'all. We do the show live. We do it live. Joe Biden was asked live, "Yo, hey, what is the deal with you and your son Hunter?" He was asked this. This is the first time Joe Biden was asked about this by the great Peter Doocy of Fox News. Maybe one of the last good guys left at Fox. I'm not sure. But my jury's out on Fox recently. But here's Peter Doocy right to his face, Joe Biden, saying, "What the hell were you doing in Ukraine with your kid and natural gas company while you're overseeing policy in Ukraine? This like absolute corruption." Again, does this look like an innocent man? Is this the reaction of an innocent man? Go.
Mr. Vice President, how many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
And so how do you know?
Here's what I know. I know Trump deserves to be investigated. He is violating every basic norm of a president. You should be asking him the question, why is he on the phone with a foreign leader, trying to intimidate a foreign leader, if that's what happened? That appears what happened. You should be looking at Trump. Trump's doing this because he knows I'll beat him like a drum. And he's using the abuse of power and every element of the presidency to try to do something to smear me. Everybody looked at this, and everybody's looked at it and said there's nothing there. Ask the right question. Mr. Biden,
okay, so there's Joe Biden saying, why was Donald Trump on a phone call trying to intimidate a foreign leader? Boy, it'd be super inconvenient if we have recordings of Joe Biden legitimately doing the exact same thing. Damn it, we happen to have those recordings. It'd be terrible if we just played them on the show for you. Boy, that would suck if we just happened to hit the play button on the show and played you a recording of Joe Biden literally trying to intimidate the leader of Ukraine into covering up his crimes. Listen.
A second positive news for you. Yesterday, I meet with the General Prosecutor Shokin.
Yes.
And despite of the fact that we didn't have any corruption charges, we don't have any information about he doing something wrong, I especially asked him, no, it was the day before yesterday, I especially asked him to resign. As his position as a state person, and despite of the fact that he has a support in the parliament. And as a finish of my meeting with him, he promised me to give me the statement on resignation. And 1 hour ago, he bring me the written statement of his resignation.
Great.
And this is my second step for keeping my promises.
I agree.
Great, I agree. What was happening there? That was the Ukrainian president, president of Ukraine, getting Viktor Shokin fired. That's the only name you need to know right now. Viktor Shokin is the guy who's looking into Burisma. Burisma hired Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. We are now learning in this entire scandal. I spent the weekend with Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let me tell you what. We were at a conference together with chatting in Dallas, Young Women's Leadership Conference. The FBI might as well have just given me the document. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we now know exactly what's inside of this document. Here's what happened. A Ukrainian energy company, and we had a whistleblower on yesterday that illuminated all of this for us, Mike McCormick, from the Biden administration. The Ukrainian energy company Burisma, run by these oligarchs, hired Hunter Biden at the direction of Joe. Joe said, you put my kid on your board, my crackhead kid. If there's one thing about Joe, man, he does love his family. Dude, a lot of parents would be like, maybe you need, you should probably go to help, rehab, and maybe live in a trailer for the rest of your life. Not Joe. Joe Biden goes and installs his son Hunter on the board of Burisma. And Burisma gets in return Joe Biden effectuating their policy. Joe Biden goes, and then he forces Ukraine to fire a prosecutor who's looking into the corruption and the monopoly of the oil and gas company there, BOMBSHELL. Oh, it's great. You have the records, you have the meetings, you have the TikTok, the timeline. And as soon as Hunter Biden gets put on that board, as soon as he's sucking down that money, Joe Biden flies over to Ukraine and then uses like bully leverage tactics, American tax dollars, and to withhold unless they fire the prosecutor. Lucky for us, we have the clip of Joe Biden literally bragging about this. You've seen it a million times. Don't need to play it again. Son of a bitch, he got fired. That's what happened. And what happened then? Bingo, bango, bongo. $5 million into each of their bank accounts. $5 million each. That's what the FD 1023 from the FBI shows. So that's damning enough. The money goes into their bank accounts. That's what they got paid to do. That's a $5 million bribe in order to hold up American policy or deliver American policy for money. Now, lucky for us, the Constitution, written by our founders 250 years ago, said that bribery is one of the high crimes you can be impeached for. Well, hot diggity damn. Don't we have an interesting little situation on our hands here? Now, we already have that recording of Joe Biden committing the bribe, acting on the bribe, executing the bribe, bragging about the bribe. But wouldn't it be interesting if we had the recordings of the actual bribe itself happening? Well, lucky for us, these dirty Ukrainians, they made those recordings. And Chuck Grassley says that their existence will be made public quite soon. Listen to this absolute bombshell from Chuck Grassley last night on the Senate floor. Chuck Grassley saying 17 recordings from Joe Biden and Hunter Biden committing bribery on behalf of the United States of America. Impeachment. It's our only option now. Go.
Let me assist for the purposes of more transparency on this subject. The 1023 produced to the House committees redacted reference that the foreign national who allegedly bribed Joe and Hunter Biden allegedly has audio recordings of his conversation with them. 17 such recordings. According to the 1023, the foreign national possesses 15 audio recordings of phone calls between him and Hunter Biden. According to the 1023, the foreign national possesses 2 audio recordings of phone calls between him and then Vice President Joe Biden. These recordings were allegedly kept as a sort of insurance policy for the foreign national in case that he got into a tight spot. The 1023 also indicates that then Vice President Joe Biden may have been involved in bereavement employing Hunter Biden.
Well, son of a bitch, he got fired. Son of a bitch, he got fired. So Chuck Grassley there, who is the senator from my home state, where I was raised, in the state of Iowa, who is what you would call an old bull of the Senate. He's the king of oversight. The man who ran oversight and judiciary for Chuck Grassley, Mike Davis, will be joining us soon to talk through all of this and what Chuck Grassley has up his sleeve. Chuck Grassley is a master of oversight. Chuck Grassley employs the best lawyers in the Senate. Chuck Grassley has the best oversight staff in the Senate. Chuck Grassley ain't bluffing. An old bull don't move unless it wants to. That's why you call him an old bull. Chuck Grassley, when he moves, when he makes those kind of statements, he's not saying it as like a flamethrower. I'm not trying to knock Matt Gaetz, right? Or like Lauren Boebert or Marjorie. They're all friends of the show. They come on the show. We love them. But I'm saying that they have a very different style of delivery, okay? Let's just say. And pushing of narratives and pushing of agendas. Chuck Grassley don't have that style. Chuck Grassley is 80 years old. Chuck Grassley only moves when he wants to, and when Chuck Grassley says that he has the recordings of Joe Biden committing these bribes, and when Chuck Grassley says he's seen the unredacted FD 1023, and that he knows what the FBI has withheld from Congress, hot damn, man, it's panic time. I mean, it's literal panic time. This is for real. This is really happening. they're really going to impeach Joe Biden for high crimes and misdemeanors. One of them enumerated in the Constitution is bribery. Listen to Chuck Grassley make the most chilling statement to the deep state last night. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, if you try and bluff with me, I have the documents. Go.
A document can be leaked to the New York Times, but a non-classified document can't be made public to 300 million Americans if they're interested in reading it. Now, accordingly, Congress still lacks a full and complete picture with respect to what that document really says. That's why it's important that the document be made public without unnecessary redactions for the American people to see. Can you believe redacting an unclassified document?
So we have the redactions inside of the document that were hiding the fact that these recordings existed. Oh, got it. So this was the FBI obscuring the fact that they have the physical evidence of the crime happening. I call it the bloody glove of politics. Those of you who were around for the O.J. Simpson trial knows that there was a glove with literally the DNA of the murder victims plus O.J. Simpson. Now, DNA evidence was so new back then in the early 90s that the jury didn't quite know what to make of this. And many could argue that this system was rigged in favor of O.J. Simpson all along. O.J. Simpson has had to pay, obviously, for this for the rest of his entire life. He lost in civil trials and so forth. He's been bankrupted and yada, yada. But nonetheless, O.J. Simpson was not convicted, even based on the preponderance of evidence, DNA evidence, that existed of him slaughtering a couple people. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have the bloody glove. Now we need to see what happens next. The FBI has been hiding that bloody glove. As Josh Hawley said, why would you redact the fact that you have the tapes?
He has been a titan of oversight for decades in the Senate. And again today, he revealed shocking new information that when the FBI allowed House members last week to review a report from a confidential source, they redacted not just the names or the identities of people. They redacted the fact that this source apparently has 17 different recordings with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. It's not possible that the existence of those recordings could be somehow classified or sensitive or compromise investigations. The only explanation for such a redaction is that the FBI and the Department of Justice didn't want Republicans conducting oversight to know they existed, because the obvious next step is, okay, where are those recordings? Let's hear them. Let's see if they actually exist, if they actually do involve Joe Biden or Hunter Biden, because that's where we should go next from here. And I think the FBI has a lot of explaining to do.
So the FBI was once again hiding this information. This will come as no shock to you. Jim Jordan, of course, is getting on this case. Jim Jordan will be joining us this afternoon for our special Trump arrested again. Oh, shit. Here we go again. Donald Trump going to be, we're going to be covering the Donald Trump arraignment live. Jim Jordan will be joining us for 20 minutes of that. So we look forward to having Jim Jordan joining us later today at approximately 2 o'clock. We'll be live once more. Jim Jordan last night was saying, hey, it is actually going to be very interesting to track all this down because we now have the Treasury files against Joe Biden inside of these suspicious activity reports. We now know where the money was coming from. We're just going to go 1 + 1 here. Jim Jordan, go.
About this foreign national who's an executive at Burisma. He also says in that section, he tells a confidential human source, we don't need anything, nothing to worry about because we have so many bank accounts, it'll take forever for them to figure it out. And he also says, we never paid the big guy directly. So now we know this is the second person to use that term. He uses that term before we knew about the first guy. James Gilliar, a business associate of Hunter Biden, when we learned about that in October 2020. This document was put together in August of 2020. So now we got both sides of the equation using the same term, the big guy. And if the big guy is not Joe Biden, somebody needs to explain to me who it is. So that's the part from the document I took away as, wow, that is the most compelling evidence, I think, that shows how this is connected to the President of the United States. This is why this document, in the end, does need to be made public so the whole country gets to see it.
So the FBI has referred to Joe Biden as the big guy. There's so much news. That would have been like the entire lead of a show. But there's so much news happening in real time right now that we don't have time to actually make that huge bombshell an entire show. But it's worth noting, the FBI, in its own documentation given over to the House Oversight Committee, refers to Joe Biden as the big guy. You live in a clown world. They've been lying to you. The 51 intel experts, all these guys, they're liars. They're spies who lied, and they lied to protect institutional power. And it should be repulsive and repugnant to every American that your law enforcement agencies do this. And I think I speak for all of you when I say that it's repulsive when they protect right-wing cause. Like, it's wrong both ways. It's wrong this way, and it's wrong to tip the scales this way. It's wrong. For a considerable portion of its existence, the FBI was a right-wing organization that protected right-wing causes and institutional power of the right. That is also equally wrong, sending suicide letters to MLK. Framing and illegally spying on civil rights, feminist, or communist leaders because they didn't like them. Operation CONTELPRO is what it's called. 20-year agenda inside of the FBI in order to root out radical activists inside of the country. Listen, if you commit a crime, go to jail. But it's wrong this way, it's wrong this way. And now the FBI is simply protecting the institutional power of the left. It's making a hedge. This is why the FBI should be done away with. Completely and totally. So the special counsel used audio recordings against Donald Trump. You're going to watch Donald Trump get arrested again today. Why are they ignoring this evidence against the Bidens? What a good question. Let's ask it.
Based on the facts known to the Congress and the public, it's clear that the Justice Department, the FBI, haven't nearly had the same laser focus on the Biden family. Special Counsel Jack Smith has used a recording against former President Trump. Well, what is U.S. Attorney Weiss doing with respect to these alleged Joe and Hunter Biden recordings that are apparently relevant to the high-stakes bribery scheme?
So, why? Why exactly? You're gonna hear secret recordings. You know, they apparently have Trump on some secret recording talking about classified documents. So you can use secret recordings inside of a special counsel. Chuck Grassley saying, "Here you go. Here's the secret recordings." Now on our show, just a couple of days ago, Lauren Boebert came directly from the secure intel facility, this is called a SCIF. She came hot, flaming and hot into the show saying, yo, we got Joe Biden. He done, based on the files that I've just seen. Lauren Boebert saying that the $5 million that was given to Hunter Biden is not including the $5 million that was given to Joe Biden for this bribe. We've outlined exactly what the bribe contained in its simplicity without going into too much detail because people get really lost inside of these Ukrainian names and all the acronyms and so forth. Joe Biden was paid money to get the prosecutor fired that was looking into this business. That's it. And he held up American taxpayer dollars to do it. That's it. It's a bribe. It's impeachable. Lauren Boebert outlining exactly how that scheme worked. Where did you just come from? What did you see?
Yes, so I just came from one of our SCIFs to view the 1023 documents from the FBI. Now, this is an FBI source that provided this information to the FBI. Just a couple of weeks ago, the FBI denied that this document even existed, and Chairman Jamie Comer pressed them on that and said, we know that this is here. We want to see it. And when Director Christopher Wray failed to produce those documents, He was threatened to be held in contempt of Congress. We were supposed to be having a markup today to hold him in contempt so we could put that on the House floor to vote for it. But he said, hey, how about we let all committee members see this document, and then there's actually more documents that relate to this as well that we will also let you view. But Benny, that's not enough. After seeing these documents, the American people need to see what is in here. These are not classified, but obviously they are secure right now. And the information is so damning, not just to Hunter Biden, but to Joe Biden, the big guy. And that is quoted in the documents.
So that was the first time, and we're very proud of that clip, because that was the first time that anyone knew that Joe Biden was the one being paid $5 million. Not Hunter, it was Joe. That is now officially the narrative. And I say narrative here because we don't have the document. Why don't the American people have this unclassified document? Why? Why not? One of my favorite new, fresh members of Congress, Byron Donalds from the great state of Florida, a bruiser, a man who is a man who has, I think, a very, very strong career ahead of him. Got to tell you, he has been a fighter. The left is scared, S-less of this guy. And he's on saying, yo, I've seen the document. Joe Biden ain't getting out of this one. Watch.
Been around this town long enough to see that the number one thing everybody wants to try to do is control the news cycle, control the narrative. So no, it's not a shock to me at all that something like this could occur, because having read that FBI document, it is damning. As much as people want to say, oh, this indictment might be serious, let me tell you, this FBI report is a damning report. First of all, they had us go to a secure facility where we read classified information to read an unclassified document. If there was nothing to see here, why would FBI go to such lengths? Then you actually read the document. And when you read the document, one thing that becomes crystal clear is that the people at Burisma knowingly paid $5 million to Hunter, $5 million to Joe Biden, so that Joe Biden would use the power of his office as vice president to pressure Ukraine to fire the prosecutor who was looking into Burisma.
Boom. Shaka laka. Byron Donalds. Super based. Watch that man. He's going places. Ladies and gentlemen, members of Congress are now learning that there are recordings, voice recordings of Joe Biden. Now, another interesting thing is, wouldn't the American government have versions of those recordings as well? Was Joe Biden using official phone lines? You remember there was Alexander Vindman, Lieutenant Colonel Donut, who recorded the Donald Trump calls and had transcripts of the Donald Trump calls. He was listening in on those calls. You don't have these calls without people listening in, especially if you're a government. So don't they already know? Is this why the Obama administration, as we covered yesterday, continued to flag Joe Biden's dealings in Ukraine as unethical and scary? Like, what the hell is this guy doing? He's running like a mob, like a dime store mob operation here. Our government has these recordings. Mark my words. And I got a theory as to what they're about to do to Joe Biden. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, check out some of these tweets from members of Congress. We have Andy Biggs, friend of the show. Quid pro quo Joe has no way around this. Accountability is coming. Quid pro quo Joe. I like that. Can you say it fast 3 times? Let's go. Eli Crane, another great up-and-coming young member of Congress. Bad news for our criminal in chief. That's a good moniker. I like that one. Keep going. Accountability is coming, says Rep. Barry Moore to a Fox News piece. Burisma executive has audio recordings of conversations with Joe. Let's hear the recordings. Lauren Boebert saying, I'm calling for the FBI Director Ray to release the FD 1023 so every member of the American public can see it, and we can hold him in contempt of Congress if he does not. That is a threat. It's a promise. Boom. Shaka. Laka. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene has also been very, very strong on this. So what do we have here? We have the collapse. Hey, Alex, see if you can grab that Gavin Newsom clip of Gavin Newsom being like, I can't endorse Joe Biden right now. What the hell is that about? Let's connect the 2 dots here. Something that we've been saying for a while. The other night on Sean Hannity's show, Gavin Newsom, governor of California, was asked to endorse Joe Biden for president in 2024. And he goes, I don't think so. Gavin Newsom, of course, the Joker before he falls into a vat of acid, right? He's like the guy before he becomes the Joker. Same mental illness, just no makeup. At least not as much clown makeup. Why would Gavin Newsom, head of the most populous state in the Democrat phalanx of states that they presumably win automatically, why would that guy refuse to endorse the candidate for president? That don't make no sense. California has like 53 electoral votes. That's the biggest state that goes into the Democrat pot. Without California, of course, there's zero path for a Democrat to ever win the presidency. And the governor of that state, supermajorities for Democrats in both chambers. Guys run it into the ground, pretty much like North Korea. I think North Korea could invade California and win, and they could have it for all I care. The governor of that state is refusing to endorse Joe Biden. What's going on? What's happening? Also, by the way, like Kamala Harris, who's the senator from that state, is Joe Biden's running mate. Something's afoot here, ladies and gentlemen. Something's a little bit problematic. And here's what I would suggest to you, and here's what I would portend before we get to this next story, which is really interesting about the new subpoenas from Congress. That they know that Joe Biden is a deeply corrupt individual that can be put out to pasture, that could be old yellered at any time. When Joe Biden becomes inconvenient, when Joe Biden begins falling down the stairs, when Joe Biden is incapable of holding up poll numbers against Republican rivals, he can be done away with. You could just say, see ya. You could just slowly, death by 1,000 cuts the guy. It's really nice to have that. If you're a criminal enterprise, it's called leverage. If you're the mob, it's called I'll break your legs. I'll break your kneecaps with my baseball bat. That's what it's called. This is what they have on Joe Biden. Joe Biden ain't going to last through 2024. That's my prediction. I've been saying it for a while. They're going to put this guy out. They knew how villainous he was. This is why it's taken him so long to announce his run. This is why no one's endorsing him. No one. AOC, Rashid, none of the squad members endorse Joe Biden. No one's endorsing Joe Biden. Something's weird's happening. Why is Joe Biden not fundraising? Why is he not campaigning? Joe Biden knows what's up, I think. I think Joe Biden knows they're going to put him out to pasture. They're not running a real campaign. They're not running an actual re-election campaign. Joe Biden hasn't done a single campaign event. Joe Biden went to the Air Force Academy and then fell on his face directly. That's as close as they've come to a campaign event. No fundraising. They've raised like virtually no money. It's a fake campaign. It's a zombie campaign. They're going to do away with Joe Biden. Here's how they're going to do it. Mark my words, because we're going to cover Trump's. We're going to move on to like Trump's arrest here today. What they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, these documents, you also mishandled classified documents. And you don't get a chance to get out of this one, Joe. So Joe Biden's going to say, I also, because of my mishandling classified documents, they're going to use that as like the patina to say, oh, I also drop out. I shouldn't run for president either. I think they're going to let Joe Biden, they're going to like put Joe Biden in the coffin and float him down the river. That's what I think. That, or they'll actually intern a special counsel and they'll pressure the guy out. It's always been a pressure campaign with this guy. They've always had it on him. Remember how late it took? Remember how he like couldn't say if he was running again? He said he had to ask permission. And then when he announced he's running, he did it via like TikTok video. He didn't even do an event. It's not real. It's not real. Here's the head of the largest state, the biggest Democrat electoral vote counter, California, saying, I'm not going to endorse Joe Biden. Huh? Get smart. This is what they have planned. Got to stay a step ahead of these people. Watch.
I think he's cognitively strong enough to be president.
I have conversations with him all the time, yes.
And I'll tell you what. You do. I'm dead serious about that. I've talked to him when he's been overseas. I've been in Air Force One, Marine One. I've been in the limo with him. I've spent time with him privately.
But you never answered my question directly. How many times does your phone ping a day, people saying you need to get in this race because they agree with me that he's not up to the job?
I see where you're going with that.
I'm asking.
No, and I'm not answering.
Oh, how many times are you asked to run against Joe Biden? Oh, you see that little knowing grin on his face? Give me that screenshot. Give me that screenshot of the Joker grin. Oh, you got me. Yeah, they know what's up. They know what's up. They know that they have a diseased old candidate, and I think they weren't planning on putting him out to pasture, but now with Republican oversight, they're going to have to. They're going to have to. They're going to have to do it, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Got it? Heath Ledger don't got nothing on this guy. Oversight Committee subpoenas former Hunter Biden business partner. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. Devin Archer, the guy who was in on the Ukraine deal, the guy who was golfing with Biden, the old golfing with Biden photo. You got that one? There he is. Hey, what's up, man? And the other dude is the Burisma guy. And there's old Joe standing there smelling like mothballs. Devin Archer has been subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee. Congressional Republicans have subpoenaed Hunter Biden former business partner Devin Archer, demanding that he sit with for a deposition this week. The Oversight Committee is saying the investigations of the business dealings of several members of President Joe Biden's family, Kentucky Republican James Comer, who's a hero to the American Republic, wrote a letter to an attorney for Archer stating that he played a significant role in the Biden family business of deals abroad, including but not limited to China, Russia, and Ukraine. Additionally, while undertaking these ventures with the Biden family, your client met with then Vice President Biden on multiple occasions, including in the White House. Archer's potential testimony to the GOP and House Oversight Committee is a significant milestone in the congressional probe. Archer served alongside Hunter Biden on the board of Burisma, the Ukraine energy company. Wow, I didn't actually know that. He served on the board as well, beginning in 2014. My God. An independent forensic review of Hunter Biden's laptop data by CBS News confirmed that hundreds of communications between Hunter Biden and Archer, specifically emails suggesting working meals be arranged before the Burisma board meetings. Archer is widely believed to have facilitated Hunter Biden's entry onto the Burisma board. This is some big tuna stuff, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be big, it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be very, very exciting to see where they go with this. And I think they're timing it out perfectly. They know that they're going to time this out. Republicans can control Congress, right? Like, they can time these things out. They're going to ratchet all this up leading into the presidential election. Democrats know that they have a flawed candidate, a broken candidate. They have a broken horse running the race with a broken leg. What are they going to do about it? What are they going to do about it? Jim Jordan threatens to subpoena Blinken over role in letter undermining Hunter Biden's story. Here we go. Two top Republicans ramped up pressure on Monday, Secretary Blinken, to provide information about any involvement he had in the 51 former intelligence officials reportedly casting doubt on the Hunter Biden story leading up to the 2020 election. This is something that was not timed right. Something that was not timed right was this. They should have gone hard in on this laptop because by the time they dropped the laptop with the New York Post, there was only 2 weeks left in the election. That was dumb. You had that laptop since 2019. You should have dropped it then. And then interned a special counsel to look into the Biden crimes. And then made Joe Biden run as somebody who has a special counsel looking into his crimes. Blinken's initial response to the chairman has been unresponsive, they wrote. We've received a letter from your attorney on May 4th, which set forth several reasons why you believe that you do not need to cooperate. You're going to cooperate with our requests, says Jim Jordan, again, who will join us for 20 minutes at 2 o'clock. As we cover Donald Trump being arrested in Miami. Miami braces for 50,000 protesters at Trump's arraignment. Ex-president lands to a hero's welcome. As his supporters lie in the street, he vows to win the White House and investigate the corrupt Biden. Okay, good. Let's go. Should have done it in the first term. I'll say it. I'm bitter. I'll straight up come out with it. I'm bitter. I know a lot of people who served in Trump's administration who was very close to Trump. And I'm not one to I'm not one to like unnecessarily criticize Donald Trump. There's enough of that in the media, okay? But I will say this. Donald Trump promised that he would put Hillary Clinton in jail, and he could have. We know that Donald Trump could have put Hillary Clinton in jail and should have. And what did the people inside of Trump's orbit tell me, the people who were real decision makers inside of the White House at the time? They wanted the country to heal. They wanted to sing Kumbaya. It was naivete. You can't really blame the guy. He'd never held public office before. It was naivete. Donald Trump's a deal maker. He was trying to make a deal. He assumed that he could sing Kumbaya with the Satanists, the leftists, the goblins that want to destroy this country. He could link hands with them and that they would all play nice. I guess you learn the hard way. They don't play nice. So now Donald Trump himself finds himself in the same position that Hillary Clinton found herself in 2016 with the mishandling of classified documents and so forth. So Donald Trump, landing in Miami today, will go to the courthouse today at approximately 2 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, they are ready to fight this one. This is not in D.C. This is happening inside of a city that is filled with Cuban expatriates, expats, who know what it looks like to have a dictator go after his political enemies. So Donald Trump welcomed with a hero's welcome. Watch.
The former president is here in Miami, expected to be meeting this evening with his new legal team. And despite the political bluster, Brett, he is fully aware of the seriousness of these charges. The first former president to ever face federal criminal charges, landing in Florida ahead of tomorrow's initial court appearance, facing 37 felony counts. In social media posts and campaign appearances, Trump continues to paint himself as a victim. And a short time ago, promising, quote, "I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of the USA, Joe Biden, and the entire Biden crime family."
So Donald Trump has a new lawyer, Lindsay Halligan. We have had Alina Habba on the show multiple times. Big fans of Alina. But Lindsay Halligan is saying, hey, listen, they want to put Donald Trump in jail in order to stop him from running in the presidential election. Here's the play. Go.
Their dream is to have this trial before the election, I'm sure. They're going for the jugular in this case. I've been involved every step of the way. I've met these people. I was there at the raid. They wouldn't let me inside the property to see what they were doing. They asked for the cameras to be turned off. Why? Then they publicized a staged photo of the alleged classified documents thrown on the floor as if that's what his office looks like on a daily basis. I was also there at the special counsel hearing where they didn't want a neutral third party. Then they leaked that there were nuclear secrets in the documents they found. Then they compelled attorneys' testimonies, and Judge Howell eviscerated the most sacred privilege we have, attorney-client privilege, allowing the Department of Justice to question one of President Trump's attorneys about his privileged communications with the president. Then they ostensibly scoffed at our allegations of prosecutorial misconduct, which this investigation has been riddled with from the beginning. Now they indicted him. I don't think they'll stop here. They have one shot to block him from the White House, and make no mistake, their goal is to put him in prison. So it's time for battle, and hopefully we'll win.
It's their goal to put him in prison. First time we've heard that, but it's true. That's ultimately not only the goal, but it is the transparent goal. People on the left see that. Joe Rogan, Stephen A. Smith, some of the dumber commentators on the left are like, yeah, that's actually the preemptive attack here is to go scorched MAGA earth. Salt the MAGA earth. Bannon, Trump, all of his aides, anyone who's ever met the guy, anyone who's ever taken a selfie, anyone who's ever posted a meme about Donald Trump. Now, it is wonderful to be professionally right on this show, and we like to be right on the show. We often are. But there are times when I was wrong, and I need to admit that. Kevin McCarthy's not a perfect man, and I was against Kevin McCarthy based on what I knew about Kevin McCarthy's leadership and based on what the people who I'm very, very close with, like Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, what they were telling me. Let me tell you a little something. I was wrong. And a good man will admit when he was wrong. I think Kevin McCarthy's been a damn fine leader. He ain't perfect. And I could name a number of things that have pissed me off, but he's been a lot better than I thought. And yesterday, man, Kevin McCarthy went full flamethrower into the face of CNN. When CNN's like, I think I sent the documents of Donald Trump, Orange Man, bad. And Kevin McCarthy said, I got something for you here. Got out a flamethrower, lit the pilot light, and said, who's cooking tonight? Watch.
Former president is accused of misleading law enforcement, of a conspiracy of obstructing justice. That's a different set of facts. Are you prepared to defend as the former president, and what other actions will the House take in the House Judiciary Committee in terms of funding?
Are you prepared to defend your network, CNN? I'm answering your question. You could ask me any question you want, but I'm entitled to answer the question, okay? You can't put words in my mouth. Even though your network can hire Andrew McCabe, who was fired from the FBI for leaking classified documents. Did you remove him from your network? No, you continue to put him on. You give judgment against President Trump. So your network hires Clapper, who literally lied to the American public, one of 51 other individuals that had briefings and used it politically to tell the American public that a laptop was Russian collusion, even though it had all this information about the Biden administration. Are you prepared to get rid of those people from your network?
So, great question. So these people lied and leaked classified information, and you hired them. Are you going to hire Donald Trump? Actually, it's probably the only thing that could save CNN at this point. Hire Donald Trump to anchor a 4-hour show every single night. You'd get people tuning in. That is for sure. Donald Trump arrived in Miami to a hero's welcome. We wanted to show you that. The first clip didn't actually show you the full welcome that Donald Trump received. And we will be joined by Mike Davis in just one moment. Ladies and gentlemen, check this out.
Former President Donald Trump waved, gave a thumbs up, and pointed at supporters who came to welcome him at Trump National Doral.
Love you. Keep it going.
Stand tall.
It's there where Mr. Trump will meet with his legal team and spend the night ahead of Tuesday's hearing in federal court.
I just felt like I needed to be here.
We are standing with him for everything.
We love him here in Florida. We love him in Miami.
We follow him anywhere. We know him.
Many supporters carried flags while others dressed the part. And even though not everyone we spoke to said they read through the 44-page indictment or looked at the photo and text evidence contained therein, they all believe his legal trouble is part of a larger plot to bring him down.
It doesn't go nowhere. It doesn't go nowhere. This is another hoax, another liar.
A lot of things they want to bring him down, but he's still standing.
Police stepped in to separate a handful of anti-Trump protesters after a brief shouting match with his supporters. Dominic Santana got his point across in a jail jumpsuit, complete with a ball and chain.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, and the legal legend, Mike Davis joins the show. Royce missed the stinger. Put him on blast. Mike Davis, you're here to put someone on blast. I don't really care about the Trump. We've talked about the Trump indictment allegations. I care about these recordings of Joe Biden. I care about your former boss, Chuck Grassley, dropping this bombshell last night saying, yo, we got the recordings. Is Chuck Grassley lying? Is he bluffing?
Chuck Grassley is the king of oversight. He's been the king of congressional oversight for many decades. He's our home state senator from Iowa. I've worked for him twice. And I can assure everyone that if Chuck Grassley says he has something, it's actually understated. And what Chuck Grassley has is there is very credible whistleblower evidence for a whistleblower who the FBI paid $200,000 over 10 years. So this is obviously a credible whistleblower that the FBI since 2017 has sat on evidence, has hid evidence that then Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter took $10 million in bribes from Burisma and got Ukraine, changed American policy, had the Ukrainian president fire the prosecutor in Ukraine who was investigating Burisma and the Bidens for corruption. So the Bidens get this $10 million. Biden calls over to the president of Ukraine. Biden is in charge of Ukraine. Obama put Biden in charge of Ukraine. And of course, Biden screwed it up like he screwed up everything. But the Biden said, if you want your $1 billion in U.S. aid, you're going to fire this prosecutor. And this is on tape. Remember, Biden bragged about this when this happened. He failed to. He's so stupid. He bragged about this, and he's so stupid that he got recorded apparently by this Burisma agent who was also a Russian. This Burisma executive who was apparently a Russian agent. So he got.
Whoa! Stop! What, you're telling me the Russians have these tapes?
That's possible. I mean, that is quite possible. I mean, that's the issue. There are 17 tapes, 15 with Hunter, 2 with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden got tapes apparently transacting this foreign bribe. And so the FBI apparently has done nothing about this since 2017. Bill Barr says he sent it to David Weiss, the U.S. attorney in Delaware. Was there any follow-up? I mean, you have allegations that a president of the United States could be corrupted. A presidential candidate is corrupted by a foreign bribe. This is $10 million from Ukraine. James Comer also has $6 million in illegal corrupt Chinese payments to the Biden family in just one of 11 bank accounts that they've been able to go through. So what are in the other 10 bank accounts? That's $16 million that Biden and his family have allegedly taken in foreign bribes and corruption, and that's just with two of the 12 bank accounts. This is a cover-up by the FBI. They've been covering up for Joe Biden since 2017. This is election interference again. They covered up for Hillary in 2016 with the blaming Trump for the Russian collusion crossfire hurricane investigation when Hillary got caught with her illegal home server as Secretary of State, with our nation's most classified secrets hacked by our worst enemies, maybe Russia, and evidencing the Clinton Foundation's pay-for-play foreign bribery and corruption scheme. So they blame Trump, say that this is Russian collusion. So if Russia did hack this server and made it public before the 2016 election, Hillary can say this was a dirty political trick by Trump. And you say, that's crazy, Mike. How can you make up such a thing? That's what they did in 2020. Remember, Hunter Biden's laptop got discovered. The New York Post, America's oldest newspaper, was ready to report on it before the 2020 election. So 51 intel goons colluded with the CIA and maybe the Justice Department to say that this was a Russian disinformation campaign. And that if the American people, polling shows that the American people would have known what's on that laptop, Biden would not be in the White House now. 2024, Biden gets caught taking a $10 million foreign bribe from as the vice president. Biden's caught with his own classified records. Trump had the declassified Crossfire Hurricane records. So what do? They raid Trump to get back the damning Crossfire Hurricane records back in August that they had no right to take. He had the right to have those under the Presidential Records Act. They're charging him with espionage, which doesn't even apply to a former president's handling of his presidential records. And the timing of this is so obvious. They did this indictment when this whistleblower evidence came out of this $10 million Ukraine bribe, Burisma bribe to the Bidens. And it's amazing that the Biden Justice Department, Merrick Garland, is so concerned about Donald Trump's presidential records that he has in the office of the former president in Mar-a-Lago, funded by Congress, secure office space, staff with security clearances, Secret Service protection, very secure, but they don't seem to be concerned at all about Biden's 5 stashes of stolen classified records, moved several times, accessed by a Chinese agent in his garage next to his Corvette. And there's evidence from Miranda Devine at the New York Post that Hunter Biden actually may have used this stolen classified information to get his millions in foreign corruption for the Bidens, including a 22-point email to Burisma where Hunter all of a sudden put away his crack pipe and his paintbrush and became a geopolitical expert on Ukraine. I wonder where he got that information.
you could make a small fortune selling crack pipe paintbrushes, right? If you just put them together, right? Hunter Biden would buy a lot of them. Got a little bit of spare cash around after he's done paying the alimony to the kid that the Bidens won't ever acknowledge. But remember, decency is back in the White House. Mike, what if decency wasn't back in the White House? I would like to ask you a question here on the spot. And I'd like to compliment Mike, because he would never do it himself. He would never talk so illustriously about himself as in his history. But Mike Davis worked with Chuck Grassley in order to get the entire Supreme Court nominated, the Trump appointees to the Supreme Court nominated. The reason we have a conservative Supreme Court, like a slight right lean on the conservative Supreme Court, is because of Mike. Mike is called upon by some of the most powerful people in Washington to get the job done when it counts, and Mike Davis does it. He's a proper hatchet man, and those hatchets are sharp, baby. So what if somebody called on you to run the Joe Biden impeachment? What if somebody called on you to say, hey, listen, we finally have these tapes. I believe you, and I believe your old boss. I believe that the tapes exist and that there is evidence of bribery. I can also read the Constitution and see that bribery means high crimes, right? And that rises to the threshold of an impeachment. Now, we have a lot of members of Congress that are suddenly starting to sign on to these impeachment inquiries into Joe Biden. They bring you in, and they say, Mike, we want you to be one of our legal advisors on an impeachment inquiry for Joe Biden. How would you go about it?
I would say only if Ben Johnson came and became my deputy, and then I would do it.
I'll do PR for it. I'll do the memes for it.
Let me just say this, Ben. We're talking about political hatchet men. Let's talk about Jack Smith, who is the political hatchet man who Garland brought in to provide cover so Biden and Garland can indict Trump for this non-crime of a former president having his presidential records in the office of former president, which is allowed by the Presidential Records Act. Jack Smith was brought in to take out Bob McDonnell, the Virginia governor, Republican Virginia governor, who was a very likely Republican presidential contender. And he would have been a grave threat to the Democrats. And so Jack Smith was brought in and brought this bogue Jack Smith used to be the head of the public integrity section appointed by Eric Holder back in 2010. And Jack Smith brought this bogus indictment against Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, went to trial, got him convicted, destroyed his life, destroyed his political career. It goes up to the Supreme Court. He got overturned by the Supreme Court 8-0. It would have been 9-0, but Justice Scalia passed away. It is very hard to get a criminal conviction overturned by the Supreme Court. I clerked on the Supreme Court. I'm aware how it works. It is nearly impossible to get a criminal conviction overturned unanimously, from Justice Sotomayor to Justice Thomas, right? That is the spectrum there. And Justice Ginsburg to Justice Alito. That is the spectrum. It is very hard to get a criminal conviction overturned in that way. And Jack Smith found the way. Jack Smith is a political hack. His wife produced a documentary for the Obamas, paid for a documentary for the Obamas. She donated $1,000, maybe from their joint account, maybe not, who knows, for Joe Biden's presidential campaign in 2020. This is a bogus legal theory. I stayed up pretty late last night and did a lot of legal research and reread this indictment of Trump, Jack Smith and Garland and Biden's indictment of Trump. It is legally deficient, flawed on its face. It's, first of all, the Presidential Records Act, not the Espionage Act, controls the former president's handling of his presidential records. And they just completely ignore that in this indictment. They also ignore the fact that even if President Trump, even if the Espionage Act somehow applies here, they're not even alleging that President Trump intended to harm the United States at all. That's not in here at all. And there's an opinion from Judge Ellis in the Eastern District of Virginia that says you have to allege harm to the United States they have to prove harm to the United States in order to win an espionage conviction under this subsection that they're charging. And they're not even alleging it, let alone any evidence that President Trump intended any harm to the United States by having his presidential records. They want to put President Trump in jail for the rest of his life for simply retaining what they call national defense information records, right? That's their weasel way around the classification issue of President Trump declassified these records. They're going to say that even if a former president declassified his records and has them, that's somehow an Espionage Act violation because it's national defense information. They're not even charging him with sharing this information. They're simply charging him for retaining this information, which he's allowed to retain under the Presidential Records Act. This is a bogus political hit on President Trump, and it may require the Supreme Court again to overturn Jack Smith again because of this bogus legal theory. This is an obvious political hit, and all these people clutching their pearls about President Trump having his presidential records in the office of former president, which is allowed by the Presidential Records Act. Where the hell is their outrage about Joe Biden having 5 stashes of stolen classified records, including from the Senate, which there's no excuse for that. Those have to be in a SCIF that he actually may have used to corruptly secure millions for every sleazebag, scumbag Biden, except for the 4-year-old granddaughter who he doesn't claim.
Mike, you're one of the best, but you're not going to weasel out of my question. You won't do it. How would these charges rise to, I mean, that's, of course, important context for today, and we're going to replay that clip when we go live to cover the Trump arraignment later today. But really quickly, would this rise to the level of impeachment, this bribery scandal, based on the evidence that your old boss brought to the floor of the Senate yesterday? How would you structure this?
Ben, there is no question that if that evidence is true from that whistleblower, that then Vice President Joe Biden took $10 million in foreign bribes for himself and his son Hunter and changed U.S. policy, there is no question that the House of Representatives must impeach him for high crimes and misdemeanors, and the Senate must remove him because he is clearly compromised as the president of the United States. There is evidence that Joe Biden and his family have taken at least $16 million from Chinese and Ukrainian oligarchs. Where are the 2 biggest trouble spots in the world right now? They spent $10 million on the Bidens in Ukraine. Biden has sent them $200 million of U.S. taxpayer money now. Joe Biden was withholding $1 billion in U.S. aid at the time if the Ukrainian president did not fire the Ukrainian prosecutor who was investigating Burisma and the Bidens for corruption. It doesn't get more foreign bribery and corruption than that. If any of this evidence is true, he needs to be impeached. And the FBI director and these officials in the FBI, the Attorney General, they need to be impeached too for covering this up.
Go after the entire rat's nest, yes. Follow Mike Davis on his Twitter account. You have to follow on days like today. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go on twitter.com and if you click follow on one account, follow on Mike's account. So important for context today, ladies and gentlemen, and support his work at the Article 3 Project. Mike, Godspeed.
Thank you, Ben.
Let's end with some happy news today because we can't guarantee what the Trump arraignment's going to be, and it's going to be wild. Apparently, there's a report of a suspicious object, a suspicious device being found outside of the courthouse in Miami. So get ready. PSYOPs everywhere. PSYOPs, they're everywhere. It's the meme, the Buzz Lightyear meme. PSYOPs everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Stay secure. Stay safe. Don't be dumb. Don't be dumb. All right? I hear there's a lot of people in Miami. Be smart. We are the peaceful people, ladies and gentlemen. Do not act the fool. Do not be a hooligan. Let that come. Let that darkened door come to the left, and not us. Speaking of somebody who should be shown the door, cringe Jean-Pierre apparently has violated the Hatch Act at the White House. Not that there will be any consequences, but nonetheless, White House Press Secretary Cringe Jean-Pierre violated a law intended to prevent federal employees from using their office to influence elections, as she repeatedly referred to MAGA Republicans in the run-up to the 2022 midterms. A government watchdog agency has found. In a letter first shared with NBC News, the Office of Special Counsel determined that Jean-Pierre's choice of words referring to Republican candidates violated the Hatch Act because Jean-Pierre made the statements while acting in her official capacity. She violated the Hatch Act against using her official authority for the purpose of interfering with affecting the results of the election. So what will happen to her? I don't know. It said that she's being called to step down as the official press secretary. That'd be very sad for us because she's great for content. And we would miss our nuclear cringe alert that we often play. That we might as well just play it because it's really, really fun. This is the nuclear cringe alert stinger for cringe Jean-Pierre. What would we do if they put somebody less cringe in there? We'd have to get rid of that stinger, and it's so fun to play. Ladies and gentlemen, if you aren't having fun yet, boy, oh boy, get ready. Got a lot of wood to chop in 2024. You better stay based. You better stay centered. You better stay with your eyes focused on the prize. Christian warriors, march forward. Our verse of the day from Romans 12, Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, Vengeance is mine, and I will repay, says the Lord. Take that with you if you're in Miami. Vengeance is the Lord's. We will have justice in this life or the next. It is promised to us. Onward, Christian soldier. God, family, country. That's how we structure our lives around here. Be smart. Get your prayers on. It's your boy Benny. This is The Benny Show. See ya.